It's Martin here bringing you a Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video, and so today we are going to talk about when we will possibly see part 2 of the celebration begin, or more specifically when the part 2 banner will be out, as well as talking a little bit about what that could potentially be. Now, I already made a video the other day when we got the update and the data download and everything, and we saw that the Lone Warrior Bardock event was being updated, and we got the new support memory, the Bardock and Kakarot, and to me that was potentially a hint that we could maybe be seeing a Goku and Bardock LR. I know other people went on, I saw Truth even went on to make a video talking about that afterwards as well, so it's definitely not just me that's thinking that that could be the potential. But we'll talk about another idea here today as well, and I'm very interested to hear what you guys think, so do let me know down below in the comment section who you think the part 2 LR is going to be, or at the very least who you think, or who you would like the part 2 LR to be, because I guess they could be two very different things, right, based on what we think is actually likely to happen, or what you think would be the most hype, or at least, you know, the thing that would get you the most excited. I am very interested to know. So let me know down below in the comments. But if we take a look at the updated celebration, so this is the celebration part 1 info as far as what we have gotten so far. Obviously this has been updated in game with some of the other stuff that has come out, but none of this goes past this week essentially, apart from this final thing at the bottom, which is stages 3 and 4 of the red zone are coming out on Wednesday the 10th. And so other than that, like today is obviously Friday the 5th. So between now and Wednesday the 10th, as far as we know, there isn't anything else actually going on. Wednesday the 10th is when those stages are going to come out, which means I would expect probably data download on Tuesday, which means we could see some info on Sunday or Monday about a potential other EZA or a Super EZA. I believe Proton did make a tweet saying that after the most recent data download, there's another one of those instances where there is a gap in the IDs, so that there potentially could be, is either a Super EZA or an LR EZA, I believe, is potentially going to be available soon based on that gap in the data. But of course that could be something potentially that will be saved until part 2. We don't currently know that for now. The only thing else we really know about part 2 in terms of like the part 2 banner, I guess, is the fact that this golden Frieza got his EZA and did not receive a banner at all. So currently, if you do not have this AGL LR Golden Frieza, there isn't actually any way to get him. It did say in the thing, literally on here, Frieza, who can be Extreme Z Awakened, will show up in an upcoming summon event. But as he did not get his own specific banner, to me that is basically just saying he is going to be featured on the part 2 banner, which makes sense, right? Because the part 2 banner should be a Carnival banner, which means the only units that will be featured will be Carnival LRs and Yellow Coin LRs. So when could we expect the banner to come out? That is the most important question. Now we can look back at the previous Tanabata celebrations in order to get an idea of this, right? So we've got the UI Goku here released. This is last year's Tanabata unit for JP, right? This guy released on the 5th of August 2024. That's for global, sorry. 28th of June 2024. And then we have the Jiren, who was the part 2 LR, released on the 18th of July 2024. So this is basically 3 weeks later. In fact, if I bring up the calendar here for, I guess we have to switch back to 2024 and then go to June. So yeah, June 28th, and then we had the 18th. So it's almost exactly 3 weeks. It was give or take 1 day. And funnily enough, if we look back across the years, this does line up pretty similarly, almost to the day, right? So we've got the 28th of June and then the 18th of July. We have the year before I looked at here, we've got the 29th of June was the full power Super Saiyan 4 Goku. And then if we switch over to July, it was the 20th that Omega came out. So again, literally 1 day's difference, right? This became the 29th, this became the 19th. Or actually became the 20th, so it's actually 2 days, but basically 3 weeks. This was 1 day under 3 weeks, to be fair, the Jiren and UI Goku, whereas this was exactly 3 weeks again. And then again, if we go back to the year before that, Vegeta and Trunks releasing on the 30th of June, and then if we switch over to July, Fusion Zamasu releasing on the 21st, which again is exactly 3 weeks later, because there are 30 days in June. So pretty straightforwardly, that means we can assume that when we look at the LR, Golden, Frieza and Gogeta, these guys released on the 29th of August. So if we literally bring up the category, that was 1 week ago today. So realistically, part 2 should start 2 weeks from today, which will be Friday the 19th. The banner came out for me at like 2 AM or something, so it was already Friday the 29th for me. I believe it was advertised as being like 28th PST, which they often do on their global advertisements, because PST, Pacific Standard Time for the US, is like 8 hours behind me or something, so it usually ends up being early in the morning on the next day. So that means we should expect to see the part 2 banner on Friday the 19th of September. That does obviously leave us with some questions here in terms of upcoming content and everything, right? Because if we don't have anything else coming out until the new Red Zone stages on the Wednesday, which is Wednesday the 10th, and then after that it's still basically a week and a half until the banner comes out on the 19th. So hopefully we will see something in the next few days, hopefully by the end of the weekend, to give us some information on either, like I say, an LR EZA, a Super EZA, maybe some sub EZAs even, something like that. Because we definitely need something to fill the gap, right? Because it'll be 2 weeks from today, essentially, that we'll get the part 2 banner. We surely cannot go 2 whole weeks from today onward where the only thing we're getting is 2 more Red Zone stages. So hopefully we will get some information, like I say, by the end of the weekend. That will give us some info on upcoming either new events, new stages, EZA, Super EZA, whatever it will be, right? LR, Sub EZA, any of that kind of stuff. Because we imagine part 2 of the celebration will also have a relevant EZA, depending on who the part 2 character actually is. There'll probably be a relevant EZA to go on their team, much like the Golden Frieza for this part 1, like Movie Boss's team. So other than that, I guess we will have to wait and see. So who will the part 2 LR be? Now, as I mentioned already, I still think there is a possibility we could see Goku and Bardock, but the big thing is we do have to think about every previous Tanabata, and I know that doesn't really mean anything, right? Because there's always like the meme, Dokkan does everything a certain way, like until it doesn't, right? It's like every year a celebration will go a certain way, do a certain thing, until the year where they decide actually they're not going to do that, they're going to do something different. Because the big thing we can see when we look back at these, right, UI Goku and Jiren, Omega and the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, Zamasu and Vegeta and Trunks, the Tanabata has always been a part 1 LR and a part 2 LR. Well, years back they weren't LRs, but part 1 and part 2 characters who fought against each other in the specific arc or movie or whatever it may be, right? Another previous year, I believe the year before this, was when we had the tech base Goku and Vegeta that fuse into Gogeta, and then the physical LR Janemba. So they've kept up this sort of pattern of the part 2 unit being a character that directly fought the part 1 unit. So of course, in that sense, it means Bardock and Goku for part 2 obviously doesn't really make any sense, and the best assumption for the part 2 unit, considering obviously where this comes from, is going to be a Broly. Now, I've got the Wrathful Broly up here because I feel like this is the #1 choice. I see a lot of people mentioning it as well. This is probably, I would say, the most popular choice among the community in terms of a Broly that we could get for a part 2 LR. Because obviously we've already got the AGL Super Saiyan Broly that goes full power from the 9th anniversary. Now, he's a little bit outdated now for sure, but I can't see them dropping a Super Saiyan Broly, even though obviously by the time we get to this part of the movie, where Broly fights Golden Frieza and then Gogeta shows up to take over, Broly is of course a Super Saiyan by that point. But I think Wrathful Broly is definitely a character that deserves some more representation, right? This guy got this one unit that came out, and you can see here, right? He EZA'd weirdly, the next day on JP, the same day on Global, he just released and had an EZA. And I think he was one of the first, if not the only at the time, like summonable units that they did this for, right? Where he just got an EZA as soon as he came out, which at the time seemed like it was kind of cool. But obviously was a start of a long tradition, especially when it comes to like free-to-play units, where we realized and like very much wished that they wouldn't do this with new units, because a unit should come out, get an awakening, right, be a TUR, and be good enough then on release, and then get an EZA later down the line when they're not usable anymore to give them another lease of life, right? Whereas obviously this guy just essentially will never get that opportunity again unless they decide to give him a super EZA, which obviously, you know, they said for now they're going to start off, they're only doing Dokkan Fest and LRs, but at some point in the future that could change. So this guy could still maybe get a super EZA one day. I mean, it's been enough years since he came out and got his EZA. If they did drop a Broly of some kind for part 2, and then they super EZA'd this guy, that would actually be really cool, because obviously it would open the door to non-Dokkan Fest and non-LRs getting super EZAs as well. But I just think it would be very good, especially if the part 2 unit is a new kind of Broly. I guess if it's a Wrathful Broly, then it's another one of those situations where the big EZA or super EZA of the celebration has the same name, and so it doesn't have as much of an impact and can be a bit restrictive with team building. But the other option that I did think about is, of course, the fact that we do have the option of a reversible exchange version of Paragus and Broly, right? Because this card, the Paragus and Broly Joined Forces card, is of course hurt by the fact that because it's a Joined Forces card and the way those cards work, they only end up with Pure Saiyans, Joined Forces and Mission Execution because of Paragus, right? So they're not even on things like movie bosses. But what could be very interesting is a reversible exchange Paragus and Broly, where the interesting thing will be what kind of active skills, right? Because they usually is the case, right? Both reversible exchange characters have an active skill. It would be kind of weird for one of them not to, because it's kind of the whole point, right? Is that they have two very distinct active skills that you get to use one of, and depending on the situation and how the fight's going, will depend which one you want to use. But this could be very interesting, right? With Broly and Paragus, I could see it being something like Broly, Paragus's active skill maybe could just be him giving some sort of permanent buff or temporary, or some, even if it's temporary, some kind of buff using the shot collar maybe, or just like the whole like go Broly like thing for when this scene essentially, and just getting some sort of buff, whether it's permanent or temporary. And then what could be kind of fun is even if it was just an active skill attack, which I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I suppose it's the same with like Fusion Zamasu only being an active skill attack and then going back to them being unfused doesn't really make sense either. But be kind of cool. Imagine if Broly's active skill was, then it cuts to like, you activate the active skill and then it cuts to Frieza doing like either killing Paragus, either you just see it straight up, or it just cuts to Frieza doing the like, Broly, look, it's your father. And then Broly just goes Super Saiyan and attacks in the active skill attack, and then goes back to base, which, like I say, doesn't technically make sense. But hey, if we've got a Fusion Zamasu that goes back to being separate Rose and Zamasu, then I guess they can do anything with these now, right? But something like that would be kind of cool. Now, I do understand, and I'm sure a lot of people will say, someone might even have typed it in the comments before we even got to this sentence, but I realized that a card that is like, I guess it would technically have to start as Paragus as well. So a unit that you're essentially summoning that is like an LR Paragus, I could see people very much not being not being particularly hyped about that, right? Just like an LR Paragus, but it's Paragus and Broly. I feel like that could work really well. I feel like it would be kind of cool. Obviously, being reversible exchange, it means they would get access to the other categories like movie bosses and all that kind of stuff. So they would be on the new team for the new Frieza and Gogeta. The other interesting thing, of course, as well, if we look at the Pure Saiyans category here, just to get there quickly, is we do have this Paragus, even though he is the Z Paragus. We obviously have the Paragus from the Z movies that came out for the worldwide last year and does not have an EZA. Like, he did not get one straight away, but his passive and everything all focuses just around an ally whose name includes Broly, but it doesn't specify Z Broly or Super Broly, because obviously they don't have different names anyway, right? The Super Saiyan Broly and everything, they are named the same, whether it's the Z or the Super version. So this guy getting an EZA at the same time would obviously be quite helpful. because he would be buffing the new Broly. He would be buffing, I guess, any of the older ones that we could still try and fit on the team. Like Tech Broly can still be interesting to run as a tank on a movie boss's team, even though he's a little bit outdated defensively for late game. But this guy getting a good EZA would be pretty cool because he's supporting all Pure Saiyan allies. And then obviously he gets his entrance animation as long as you have a Broly. Starting from the 6th turn, he's then giving even more support to allies whose name includes Broly during his turn. So this guy could be quite interesting to get an EZA and then be run alongside the super version of Broly and Paragus. I think that would be kind of cool. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section in terms of what we could see for an LR. Like when it comes to the Broly and we think about like Super Broly, we've obviously got the Broly trio. I can't see a new version of them, especially as a reversible exchange would be kind of weird. Like, would it be like Chi-Lai and Lemo plus Broly? Which again has the same sort of like hype issue as Paragus. I guess it would add more interesting categories because of them. And of course because of Lemo being the true big bad boss. Although actually, yeah, it would mean the Chi-Lai and Lemo part would have big bad bosses, but the Broly part wouldn't. Obviously a big one that people have mentioned as well, which it feels like Heroes territory, but would obviously be very cool, is like a Super Broly reversible exchange with Z Broly. Like, that would be awesome. A new Super Saiyan 3 Broly would also be crazy, but doesn't really make sense with the, like I say, the whole thing about like the character that fights the Part 1 character. But a Z Broly reversible exchange with Super Broly I think would be kind of cool. But I don't know if that strays too far into Heroes territory because obviously it's two characters that technically shouldn't exist like in the same place at the same time. But either way, let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Who do you think the Part 2 LR is going to be? Who do you want it to be? And like I say, we should see the banner drop potentially on Friday the 19th, 2 weeks from now, if we are going by the previous pattern that the Part 2 banner for the Tanabata celebration, now of course called the Transcendent Dokkan campaign, drops 3 weeks after the Part 1 banner. So let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.